From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report on Radio Andy. We count down the top 10 things that make us go wow. I'm Ben Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, here with editor of the Wow Report, James St. James.
How do you do? Oh my God, yeah.
Tom Campbell is out on special assignment this week, but we're very excited to welcome, filling in, Brooke Lynn Hytes.
Hi.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
We're going to talk about you, all about you in a minute.
Okay.
And of course, Blake. What do you, Blake?
Hi.
Hi.
I was trying to point at Brooklyn. There we go.
There you go. You figured it out.
Yeah, finally.
So, lockdown continues, but we're still here, right? Let's start the countdown. Let's get into it. Number 10.
Number 10.
Great surprise, great reveal. Brooke Lynn Hytes.
Hi.
Hi. We were just deciding that this is the first time we've ever met, isn't it?
It is the first time we've ever met. I've obviously known about you for years, but our paths have just never crossed. But nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We had Jeffrey Bowyer-Chapman on the show earlier, who is your co-host on Canada's Drag Race. And tell me a little bit about the show. Can you talk about it? Can you give some reveals or when, how, when, where, what's going on?
All of it? Okay. Well, yes, we filmed Canada's Drag Race. It's premiering July 2nd on Crave TV in Canada and the Wow Presents Plus app in the States.
Nice.
BBC 3 in the UK and also Stan TV in Australia.
Wow.
I know you're going to be able to see it literally all over the world, which is so cool. It was so much fun to do. I couldn't believe how much fun it was. I was a little nervous, obviously, going in. Because less than a year ago, I had been a contestant on the show, and now I was a judge. So that was a little bit intimidating. But
now, tell me, do you think that did you know about the show was going to be filmed, and did you have it in your head? I've got to try out for this. I've got to get it.
I know. I want to know how you felt like when you found out. Where were you? And like,
yeah.
Well, actually, right after we wrapped filming season 11, I was in LA, and it was me and Silky. Actually, we went down to the World of Wonder offices just to say hi to people and Kiki and whatever. And we were sitting in the boardroom with Fenton and everybody, and
we were in this very room.
Yeah, in that very room, and we were just sitting there talking about like what kind of Wow Presents shows we wanted to do, and I was like, you know what I would really love? I know this is like a crazy, wild, far off dream, but if we could do a Canada's Drag Race someday, I think that'd just be so amazing. And if I could somehow be a part of it, I would love that. It's like my dream.
Well, Fenton, had you already had it in your head that you wanted to do it, or is she the catalyst for making it happen?
I would love to say that. It was actually, at that time, we were deep into these very fraught and complicated negotiations. And many a day was when I thought, oh, it's never going to work out. It's never going to happen. There were all these sort of complications. So when Brooklyn said that, I was trying my best to keep on my poker face.
Yeah.
Not in any way.
And he did. He didn't give up. Like, I had no idea. They were just like, totally.
As they always are.
I know.
They are Sphinx-like.
Stone face. So I was like, okay. And I didn't think anything else of it. And then it was, oh gosh, it was probably around May. I think it was just before or just after the finale. And I was like, okay, well, I've lost. And like, now what am I going to do? And then all of a sudden this pops up and they're like, hey, so do you want to be like a judge on Canada's Drag Race? And I was like, it was like the perfect timing. It was like just when I needed like a little bit of good news. They were just like, boom, here you go. And I could not believe it. I don't remember where I was. I just remember like my reaction was very similar to the one I got the call to be on the US Drag Race. I believe I tried to play it cool and then I hung up and I jumped up and down. And
what do you think about your two other judges? Because you're part of a throuple, right?
I hate them. No, I really, like, we all have worked at TV. We know how it works. Like, chemistry is not an easy thing to come by, and it's not something you can really fake. And we got so lucky. Like, we all just really vibed off each other. We're all very different personalities. And we just had so much fun together. The three of us met for the first time the day before we rolled cameras.
Wow.
Yeah. So literally we had one meeting. We just sat down. We went through some lines and stuff. And that was our only like intro to each other. And then we started filming the very next day, which was insane. But yeah, we all get along so well. Jeffrey's kind of like the old hat at it because he's done it before. He's judged the US version twice, and now he's on All Stars again. And he had worked in reality television and television in general the most out of the three of us. So he was kind of our guiding light a little bit. And then Stacey is just amazing. She's an incredible model, and she has such good insights with fashion and all of that sort of thing. And she's just so funny. She's very like Miss Vanjie, Alyssa Edwards funny, where she doesn't quite get she's funny and doesn't know why, but it just works. So we have
you grew up in Toronto, right?
I did, yes. Toronto.
Yes, I love Toronto. It's one of my favorite cities. Mm-hmm. And then you were also in South Africa for a while. Weren't you in Cape Town or something?
Yeah, I lived in Cape Town for 2 years right after I finished my ballet training, and that's where I started like my professional dance career.
And then you were with the Trocaderos in New York for a while, right?
Yes, I was in Ballet Trocadero for 4 years, right after Cape Town, and then that's when I moved back to Toronto and I started doing drag full time.
That's amazing. I've seen the Trocaderos a million times when I lived in New York, and they're a long-time drag troupe, ballet troupe. They started in like 1972 with Charles Ludlam. Is that correct? Was he one of the founding?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, okay. Drag legends. Everybody who's in it is a drag legend.
Yes.
And then now you're out here. You're in Los Angeles.
Yes, I'm in LA now.
And you love it?
I love it. I love it so much. Oh my God. I was living in Nashville before for 5 years. I've literally bounced around everywhere, but yeah, I love it out here. It feels like I'm at home finally, which is really nice.
And there's a lot of girls that are out here, and I'm sure walking down the street. Well, you haven't really had a chance to walk down the street yet, but you will be noticed, and we hope they will fall on their knees and praise you as you walk past.
I like being praised.
Stick around with us, Brooklyn. We're going to count down the other 9 things, the other 9 lesser things. But chime in as we go along. So that's Canada's Drag Race. Brooklyn is one of the judges of Canada's Drag Race, coming to WoW Presents Plus July 2nd, and Crave in Canada, Stan in Australia, BBC 3 in the UK. It's going to be everywhere. James, what do you got? Number 9.
Number 9.
Well, this isn't a one that made me go, wow. This is one that made me just go, I'm not quite sure. I watched the new Perry Mason reboot on HBO. I don't know if you've been hearing about it.
I've never heard of that.
Perry Mason was an old like noir pulp fiction character in the 30s and 40s. He had a series of books. There were about 80 of them. And then in the 1950s, it was a well-known TV series that ran from What?
Who was the star?
Raymond Burr, who is a closeted gay actor. And even when as a child, I remember in reruns, I would see it, and my gaydar would just ping, 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 because I knew that you knew he was gay. It ran from like 56 to 1966. It was on forever and ever and ever. And this is a reimagining of that, starring Matthew Rhys, I guess, a British actor. I'm not sure. And it's set in the 1930s instead of the 1950s. And it's like an origin story. And I couldn't quite follow the script. I didn't know what the hell was happening. He's a detective instead of a DA, which is sort of weird. It doesn't make any sense. And it's just weird because there have been a lot of TV shows lately set in the 1930s. You had Hollywood 1930s, and you had Ryan Murphy's Hollywood. You had Penny Dreadful, the new one that's set in the Mexican riots in the 1930s. And all of this sort of pulpy stuff is happening. And I'm just wondering, all of this had to be greenlit and shot before quarantine. And I'm wondering what was happening in Hollywood that everyone sort of went 1930s Hollywood at the same exact time. Can anyone answer me that?
Maybe it's like we always talk about the 20-year cycle, what used to be the 20-year cycle, where in the 70s, the 50s were cool, and the 80s, the 60s were cool, and the 90s, the 70s were cool again.
Right, yes.
And you always say, well, now it's just a jumble because you can get everything all the time. So maybe that's just what's in fashion right now.
But I'm also wondering if maybe because of the Depression, something like that, where we're headed for another depression and everyone started linking that up. What do you think, Fenton?
Maybe it's the 100-year cycle.
Oh, that could be too.
And you're old enough to remember, James. You were around then.
I was a young girl at the time, and so it's all just coming back to me. It's like my childhood revisited. All over
if you call 236 young.
Well, the 30s aren't like an era that I feel like have been touched on a lot in film. I could be wrong there, but I don't feel like it's a super like well-known, like talked about era.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the beginning of like the sound motion pictures and everyone, like Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, all of that. But there's a lot of things a lot of darkness that was happening. There was, like what was the woman who was murdered?
The Dahlia murder.
Right. Yeah. There's also a lot of these shows are all touching on Amy Semple McPherson, who was a very famous preacher in the 1930s. She was a woman and she had sort of a cult following and she was very like dramatic. And this is in that. She's also in Penny Dreadful. She's also in Hollywood. So maybe, I don't know what that is about.
I think she was a pioneer of televangelism, wasn't she? But
yes,
in the radio era,
Yeah, she was on the radio, and she just across the country. She just had millions of followers, and she was a bit of a sham. She was It was all a hoax, and she was just bilking the people. And then she disappeared, didn't she?
Yes, she said she'd been abducted, but it turned out she'd snuck off to have a love affair.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know where this show is going. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but it's interesting. If you have a hankering for noir 30s Hollywood, give it a shot.
Right. So that's on HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 8. I saw this movie. How do you feel about airplane movies? Do you have a Brooklyn? How do you feel?
Fenton is obsessed with airplanes. He has like model airplanes and T-shirts and pajamas and everything is airplanes with him.
And the only recurring dream I have is of being in an airplane crash. It's not always the same crash, but I've had dozens of dreams of being in an airplane crash, which maybe doesn't bode well. But
I was going to say, I think that's how you've cursed yourself. That's how you're going to die.
Thank you.
I never have those unless I'm on an airplane and happen to doze off for 2 seconds. Then I'm like,
That's why you always take Xanax when you get on an airplane.
You're like, take Ambien, boy. There's some of the things I've done on airplanes on Ambien. Woo!
And that way you can just blame it on the Ambien.
I'm walking up and down the aisles naked. No. Anyways, so you saw a movie.
I saw a movie. It's on Amazon Prime, and because I love the streaming era, with the Netflixes and the Hulus and everything. But also, there's a lot of crap out there now, right? I mean, it's not like more is not necessarily more, or more is more, but it's not necessarily that much better. But oh my God, occasionally you discover something really amazing. And this is a movie, a German-made movie, directed by first-time director Patrick Vollrath. And it stars, this is for you, James, it stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Oh, God, he's so beautiful.
He hasn't done anything in a few years. He took a break to have kids, and this is his first thing back.
Wait, you mean he's straight and he has children?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything, girl. Don't worry.
It's called 7500, and the movie begins with those airport surveillance shots of people in an airport terminal just walking around. I gotta tell you, it's so tense immediately. And then it goes from the airport mezzanines to the cockpit of an airplane, of a commercial flight. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the co-pilot, and they're settling in. I tell you, I was on the edge of my freaking seat from the beginning. And the entire movie takes place in the cockpit of the plane. And this isn't too much of a spoiler alert, but shortly after takeoff, the terrorists storm the cabin, and the entire film takes place in the cabin of this plane.
Wow.
So good. And it's just
you're always in the cabin and you're never anywhere else? Isn't that claustrophobic and terrifying?
You never go anywhere else, and it's absolutely terrifying, and your heart is racing, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is really good.
Always.
He's good in everything he does. But he's so good, I didn't even recognize him. I thought, gosh, who's that cute young co-pilot? You know, it wasn't being all Joseph Gordon-Levitt-y. It was like, I can't recommend it enough. It was really good. It had me on the edge of my seat and delivered on that sort of fear of flying or that sort of hyper anxiety. You know, even banal things like when the passengers get on board, because you know something's going to happen because it's a movie, you're just the most ordinary things of like, what do you want for your meal? When the
Don't do it.
Yeah.
And then for the entire movie, like not the entire movie because there's several twists, but hammering on that fortified door trying to get in. It's really good.
What's it called again?
7500, which I think is the code word for a terrorist hostage midair situation. So if you
I suggest that we all need to do like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt marathon and do like Mysterious Skin. Remember how good that was, where he was the hustler? And then remember for a minute there, he was going to be Robin in the Christopher Nolan. He was going to be Robin in the Batman movies.
Oh, he would be an excellent Robin.
Wouldn't he? I know. He would have been so hot.
Yes.
I just love him. So I'll give that a shot, definitely.
Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll carry on with our countdown of the top 10 things that make us go, wow. Blake, you have a question for us?
I do. You guys know how they have those smaller holidays. Some are like important, like Nurses Day and like awareness days, and then some aren't. They're like donut days.
Right,
well,
sure.
Yesterday, Thursday, June 25th, was this day. And I'll give you a couple of hints. We've been doing this since the quarantine started. And Camila Cabello and Normani's group had topped the charts with a song about doing this. So it's National blank, blank, blank day.
Okay, we'll have the answer for you right after the break. You're listening to The Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to The Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James St. James and Blake and Brooke Lynn Hytes.
Hi.
Yay!
One of the judges of Canada's Drag Race coming July 2nd to screens everywhere. Very excited. It's really good. I have a quick question for you before we answer the question for the break. Brooklyn, how are the queens different? Because I'm sure that's what people are going to ask you. So I want to ask you first, how are the queens different from the US queens and the Canadian queens?
I mean, queens are just shady no matter where you go. So I wouldn't say there's a huge difference, honestly. Like, I don't see a big difference between Canadian and American queens. We're so close together, like our borders touch. So it's not like a UK thing where they are noticeably different. I think the biggest difference in Canadian drag just in general is we don't have a lot of pageant drag in Canada. And I always say that's like the biggest thing because like the States is obviously known for its pageant drag, and we are not really known for that.
Are there queens from like the Yukon? Are there queens from just like Calgary? Are they all over the place?
We have all over. We have a lot from British Columbia. We have a lot from Quebec and a lot from Ontario. So that's where the majority of the queens come from this season.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a stunning cast.
It's great.
Okay, so before the break, Blake, you had a question for us.
Yeah, today is it's one of the smaller holidays. It's National blank, blank, blank day. And I'll give you two hints. One of them is we've been doing this since quarantine started. And the second is Normani and Camila Cabello's old group had a hit song a couple of years ago about this. So what is it? National blank, blank, blank day.
National Cookie Eating Day. That's what I've been doing in quarantine.
James,
No.
I think you were going to say you were masturbating.
How dare you? Have you been watching? Have you been looking in my windows?
No, I can say National Hand Washing Day.
Okay.
Close.
Oh,
National Work from Home Day.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my
That's
God.
it. There you go. Good to know. Good to know.
Brooklyn, you win absolutely nothing.
Oh, man, thank you.
All right, so we're counting down the top 10 things that make us go wow, and we have reached number 7.
Number 7.
Well, I watched a new documentary on Netflix over the weekend. It was Disclosure. It interviews several wild celebrities, Flawless Sabrina, Laverne Cox, Zachary Drucker. Yeah, Zachary Drucker. I Am Chaz is mentioned. First of all, I never had heard of Tula.
Oh, yeah, sure.
No? Oh,
Yeah.
Is
Tula was a Bond
amazing.
girl, right? Back in the 1980s.
mhm.
And she was also the first transgendered person to model for Playboy in 1991.
I remember that, yes.
Final thing I thought was really, I never knew that there was a documentary before Boys Don't Cry. Kind of like,
yes, about Brandon, Tina, yeah.
you know, and that there was an entire character that was cut out of the movie.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It was Brandon Tina's friend who was a black male who was also killed in the house.
Oh, right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but I just thought that was interesting. And just like how you learn from things, it made me want to research and go back and watch like the documentary of. What did you think of it?
Oh, well, the thing, now when people watch Boys Don't Cry, they get stuck on the fact that it wasn't a transgender person who played the transgender character, and it was Chloe Sevigny who did it. And I don't think at the time they probably could have gotten the funding, or they couldn't have gotten it made.
Well, no, Chloe Sevigny played the girlfriend. It was
oh, right, okay. Who was it? It was who was it?
Hillary Swank.
Hillary Swank, yes. I'm terribly sorry. But without Hillary Swank's involvement, they probably wouldn't have been able to get funding or get it made. And so times have changed, and I think maybe they could remake it now and have a transgender person play, a transgender man play the character. Anyway.
I thought the archive was really great. And a friend of mine, Jenny Olson, did the archive research. I thought some of the old clips were really fascinating, pointing out that like the narrative of how trans people used to be portrayed as kind of crazy serial killers. They were either they were crazy serial killers, and then that sort of morphed into they are people who get killed.
It started with Psycho with Norman Bates, and then Dressed to Kill with Michael Caine, and all of that. I'm with you though about the archive stuff, and like I was saying, that I really enjoyed all the old Christine Jorgensen stuff back in the 1950s. I thought that was. I was
going to say her too. I loved learning. I mean, I'd heard of her before, but I'd never like really studied her. So I want to go back and like really study,
Right, and it was a fascinating mix of people who spoke. I always loved seeing Janet Mock. I always loved seeing a lot of the leaders of the trans movement. I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, it was very great, and there's so many of them are so eloquent and well spoken, which is something I always really, really admire. Like I love listening to Laverne Cox talk.
Oh, Laverne literally she just is. I want her to run for office. I want to see her just give speeches all the time. I just think she's amazing.
Yeah, and Angelica Ross too, just so well spoken and eloquent.
Yeah, and it's great timing it's a great time to be watching a documentary like that. It just feels we're at such a sort of tipping point, or power shift,
Exactly.
and it's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to see where it will go. Overdue, right?
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it on Netflix.
All right. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Well, last week I talked a little bit about a book I was reading about Caligula, and which I was talking about how it was a revisiting the history of Caligula, and here the things that we'd heard all the years maybe weren't quite true. I did another book this year. I did another book this week, a history book about the Princess de Lamballe. I don't know if you guys know the story of the Princess de Lamballe. Oh,
that's why you're here, James.
That's why I'm here. It's called Marie Antoinette's Confidante: The Rise and Fall of the Princess de Lamballe by Jerry Walton. It's a 2016 book. And now, when I was growing up, I don't know about your childhood, but we always just told stories about the Princess de Lamballe. We would do little hopscotches. Princess de Lamballe, where is your head? Is it in the icebox? Is it in the cloakroom? It's one of the saddest, most upsetting stories you will ever here. The Princess de Lamballe was Marie Antoinette's best Judy. They were best friends. She was her lady in waiting, and she was very shy, and they would sit in corners all the time and whisper and giggle, and they were just, I mean, just inseparable. And along comes a Princess de Polignac, who was a wild party girl. She was a wild, like just a big old whore. And she took sort of Marie Antoinette away from the Princess de Lamballe. And that's when you start having all the stories that you see in the movies about the two of them going, all the parties and the wigs getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, the Princess de Lamballe actually ended up being the better friend. And when the revolution started happening, there's a very famous story about how the peasants stormed Versailles and they were coming to kill Louis XVI and the children and Marie Antoinette. And they put all the men put a giant table. They turned a table upside down so they couldn't get to her. And Princess de Lamballe stood in front of Marie Antoinette and guarded her as everyone was like spitting and throwing things at her and everything like that. Well, then when the revolution really began and Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI were trying to escape in their carriage, and they were caught and taken to the Bastille and put in a tower. Well, the crowds grabbed Princess de Lamballe and they took her in front of Marie Antoinette's tower. And as they were shaking her, the women were screaming, give her grace, and don't kill her. Well, the men jostled her and her hat fell off and her hair came tumbling down. And there was a message from Marie Antoinette in her hair. And when they read that, that's when they said, off with her head, off with her head. And they took her head off. They sliced her head off in front of Marie Antoinette's tower so that she could see. And then they ripped her clothes off. They ripped the headless body's clothes off, and the men all defiled her body and fucked her in front of everyone. And then they put the head on a pike, and they took the pike off in one direction, and they tied the body around a horse. And for days, the headless body was dragged through the streets of Paris as everyone cheered, Princess de Lamballe, Princess de Lamballe. And everyone was laughing and throwing things at the headless body as it was for just days dragged back and forth. Well, the head of the body was taken to a hairdresser, and they put they did the hair back up like her old hairstyle so that everyone would recognize her. And then they took the pike in front of Marie Antoinette because she still hadn't seen it yet, and they put it in front of her window, and they called, Marie, look at what happened to your friend, and this is what's going to happen to you. And when Marie heard that, the chanting, she fainted. And so that's what this book is about, and that's what the stories are about that have been passed down through the generations and the centuries about poor Princess de Lamballe and her headless body being dragged back and forth. And this is a book that says that maybe those are stories that didn't happen, and it was just sort of the people over the years and the hatred of the Louis XVI, and all of that they have started spreading these rumors, and that maybe what happened to her was that she wasn't fucked by the masses and she wasn't stripped naked, and so I haven't gotten that far in it. I've just started it, but it's just a fascinating story of history, and it's sort of a something I keep saying that when everything goes down in America, heads are going to be on pikes, and people have to start watching out, because when the masses are angry, and we see what happens when the masses get angry, you gotta watch out a little bit.
Well, shit.
That sounds kind of like how you guys were talking about The Great.
Oh, right.
That's such a good show.
Amazing. Yes. And that's another one. The Russian Revolution is another, when the lower classes and when the masses get angry enough at what's happening with the
I'm a little worried, James. I'm sensing a theme because, like, week after week, you're telling these gruesome, gory stories of beheadings. I think we need to watch. I need to
watch out. I'm going to be a beheader. I'm going to do it.
Well, I think he's just moved from like current news, since everyone's stuck at home. Now he's just having to read old news about stuff like this. So.
Well, but if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it, and that's the thing. Where all through history there have been tyrants and despots, and the people get angry, and that's what's happening. We have a despot, we have a tyrant in office right now, and it's about to boil over.
Well, Brooklyn, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, that sounds intense. I want that made into a movie.
Yes, I think there needs to be a Princess de Lamballe movie. Yeah.
I love period movies, so I'm all about that. I actually really want to read that book now. That sounds something.
Well, the thing is, because it's perfect for drag, because that part of history where everyone's in the giant wigs and the giant dresses and the makeup, it keeps getting more and more. It's what's happening with drag right now, with the hair and the makeup getting crazier. I find many things that are similar between what's happening now, even in drag, and what happened to fashion back in the 1700s.
Completely. I always, when I'm watching movies like that, I always find myself wondering, like, I can't even imagine what the quality of life must have been for these people, even the rich people, like just like.
Everyone smelled. There was no deodorant. There was no toothpaste. People would just piss in the corner of the palace. I mean, it was disgusting and wrong. And there were probably bed bugs and roaches and rats everywhere, even for the rich.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let alone the poor. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, ooh, just makes me.
They talk about the wigs, that were shaped like ships and all that stuff. But they said that there were rats living in the wigs, and they were because nobody ever washed them, and they just were filled with vermin and roaches and lice and ugh.
The rats are the pirates.
Right?
Too much relish, James, in this whole thing.
I do have fun with it.
I love it.
I do remember a detail stuck with me is that like people didn't have oral sex as much as they do now because for those very reasons. That
everything was probably oozing and smelly and
everyone likes cheese on their bagel.
Oh no.
We should move on to number 5.
Number 5.
I was awake this morning, like like sometimes you're just lying in bed, you can't sleep, you're scrolling through your phone, and you suddenly read something, and you find yourself just getting sucked into it. So it was an obituary, and I think it was in Vanity Fair about Paul Fortune. Now, James, you didn't know Paul Fortune, right?
I never met Paul, no. And it's funny because until you showed me the Vanity Fair thing, I really didn't know the story of this club.
Right. He was a Brit. He moved to LA in the early 80s, and he opened this club at the, I think it was a Greyhound or Trailways bus station, like a couple of blocks down from here. He would take over this kind of grungy bus station and opened a club called...
You mean one that's on Sunset, right by where the bank is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Called Fake Club. It's called Fake Club, and the invitation was "Come as you aren't." And so it was like a sort of a Hollywood conceit. And he ran this club for a couple of years, but, everybody went there. Rupert Everett went there. John Sex went there. John Mabry, Kevin Costner before he was famous, Richard Gere.
Andy Warhol. There was a lot of Marissa Berenson and all that sort of crowd. Yes.
And then I'm scrolling and reading this and thinking, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of Club Fake. I guess it was like the area nightclub as area was to New York, Club Fake was to LA.
It sort of seemed a little bit mud clubby too, didn't it?
Yeah. And it was only open for a couple of years. And then he became an interior designer. And the Hard Rock Cafe, and the image of the Hard Rock Cafe is that vintage Cadillac going in, in through the roof. That was him. He designed that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he designed Les Deux Cafés, which is right next door to the office here, which was an old house that was a crack den and a flop house. And they moved it into the parking lot, and it became this ultra trendy, chic.
Lindsay Lohan, The Girls from the Hills,
Paris Hilton. I remember one time, Fenton, you and I and Randy ate there, and Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt were eating next to us, and that was their first date.
I saw one of the doctors from Nip Tuck, the hot one there.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to Club Fake.
The Les Deux Cafés was run by Michelle LeMay and Rick Owens, the fashion designer, right?
Yeah.
And then he went and designed Sunset Tower, which is the other sort of total hotspot. So I just found myself reading this and just fascinated by this guy. And very sadly, he passed away. That's why it was an obituary. But it was just an extraordinary life. and he is the Duke de Fortune in Marie Antoinette.
Oh, yeah, everything it all comes to bed.
I've been watching that.
A Perspex prickly cactus light.
Oh, and didn't somebody famous didn't Barbara Streisand buy it or something?
Barbara Streisand had one, yes. But I was like, yeah. So that's Paul Fortune. Rest in power, Paul Fortune. And he sounds an amazing life. Oh, he was also a music video director in the 80s as well. Like Betty Davis Eyes and Steve Strange, Annie Lennox, Boy George.
Oh yeah, because all the Boy Georges and everybody came over. All the Brits during the early '80s, Pete Burns and Steve Strange and Annie. Yeah, all those people were part of the scene.
So it's just so fabulous when you discover a sort of piece of history that's just been forgotten.
What's funny because they talk about how Power Tools was right afterwards. That was the first time I came to LA was during the Power Tools era. So I missed this whole era. I must have, and it's all been sort of a cultural blind spot. So it was a fascinating article in Vanity Fair, I believe.
That's absolutely right. We'll post a link on the Wow Report. Okay, let's take a break. Got a question for us, Blake?
I do. Today's June 26th, and it's this pop starlet's birthday. She's also a Wow Celebrity because she was a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 7, Episode 6. Who is she?
That's very specific.
Yes.
All right, you're listening to Wow Report on Radio Andy. We'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Blake, and very excited to have with us the illustrious superstar Brooke Lynn Hytes.
Hi.
Hi. Co-host of Canada's Drag Race, coming July 2nd to quality streaming outlets everywhere. Including Wow Presents Plus. Your filming experience, Brooklyn, we were in a warehouse studio. I mean, it really wasn't a studio, was it?
No.
I think you could talk about it.
Okay, so I believe it was an old ammunition factory from the 1950s that we filmed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was really interesting. And it was a huge space. So it was perfect for filming a TV show. The problem was it wasn't very easy to heat. Meaning we didn't have heat most of the time, and we filmed this in the winter in Canada. So that was a challenge.
So you might as well have been outside, right? You might as well have been.
I felt especially bad for the queens because there were times when they were literally just like shivering, not in fear, but from actual cold. But yeah, that was fun to do.
And it was haunted too, right? The studio was supposed to be haunted. Well, the studio.
Well, that makes sense because the minute we got there, Jeffrey Boyer Chapman went through with his sage, and he saged the entire studio. He saged all the ghosts out of there. So
I'd like him to come sage my place.
I'm sure he would. Wouldn't we all?
All right, so we had a question before the break, very specific one.
Yes, it's this pop starlet's birthday. It's June 26th. She's also a Wow Celebrity because she was a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 7, Episode 6.
We're gonna test your knowledge, Brooklyn, of Drag Race Season 7. Do you have an idea?
I don't remember seasons. Does anybody remember Season 7?
Who won Season 7? Was that Bianca?
No, that was Violet. Yeah.
That was Violet. Okay, so I'm going to say it was either Ariana or Demi.
It was Ariana.
Wow!
Yeah.
There we go. That was just a wild guess. That's fascinating.
Happy birthday, Ariana Grande.
We love you, Ariana.
I'm always forgetting to get pictures with celebrities, but that Nolan, I think he was like 6 or 7 years old, came on set, my son, and she was so nice to him and took all these lovely pictures with him. And he was just totally couldn't say a word. And she knelt down and she held his hand and she gave him a kiss. And he looked like he was just going to explode with happiness.
Oh, I love that.
You know, Fenton's son Nolan has managed to meet every single famous person of the 21st century. He's going to be the most spoiled. He's got to be like a director or something. He's got to do something because he had, or at least write a story about his childhood because he's had an amazing childhood.
He just loves to bake. I think that's all he wants to do is bake cakes.
That's so cute.
All right, let's carry on with the countdown. What's number 4?
Number 4.
I just wanted to do a little past, present, and future of what I'm streaming now.
Yes.
In the past, I just got like Apple TV Plus, and I also just got Disney Plus, and I also got HBO Max. And when I say I got them, I got passwords for my mom and sister.
Now, for Disney, are you going to watch Hamilton? Will you do us a favor and you will watch it and report back?
Yeah, I'll watch that. Yes, I will.
Okay.
But I'm just like, meh. I know I'm in the minority here, but I just like, I love watching dumb old house renewal shows. But the couple of things that I did like on streaming, That's So Raven.
Sure.
Plus, I love watching the classic episodes, and she is just hilarious to me. She recently got married.
I was just going to say congratulations. Yeah.
A beautiful young woman. My present, I'm currently obsessed with Good Bones on HGTV. Has anyone watched that?
No. What is it?
It's a house show where they take an old house and they renovate it and then they sell it. And these women, it's a mother and daughter team. The mother is Karen and the daughter is Mina. They're both beautiful redheads, and it's in Indianapolis.
Like Brooke Lynn?
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yes. But it's in Indianapolis, and they redo all these houses. It's in the 5th season. It just started back up on HGTV. I love it. Check it out. And then in future, Fenton, I noticed that I believe today or tomorrow, what was the Michelle McNamara book? I'll Be Gone in the Dark. That HBO Max will be streaming.
Golden State Killer, right?
Yes. That's what I'm excited to watch this weekend.
Well, I tried to get HBO Max because I wanted to watch Search Party. Do you know about Search Party?
Mm-mm.
It's a TV series. It's who are Hunter and what was her name?
Oh, Hunter and Jessica.
It's like Hunter and a bunch of Hunter and Jessicas, and they solve mysteries together, and it's supposed to be just absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to watch that. It's called Search Party. It's got 3 seasons.
Oh, another past for you, Brooklyn, since we're Canadian. I'm obsessed with Degrassi, the new generation. It's streaming on Tubi, and actually the old Degrassi's, which I've never seen before from the 80s, are on YouTube. So,
yes, I love both of them. It's so weird seeing like Drake play like a little kid in a wheelchair.
Yeah, right? Wasn't he? What was Jimmy. What was it? He was Jimmy was his name?
Yeah.
It's very weird. I started watching last night that I hadn't watched in years is Ugly Betty.
I've never watched Ugly Betty. I've never seen it.
Oh, I love it. It's such easy watching. It's like easy, fun fluff. It's perfect.
I guess I will do. I've never watched Degrassi either, so maybe those are the 2 things that I need to start streaming.
You definitely need to do Degrassi, The Next Generation with Drake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything from Canada that you miss watching?
Oh, Schitt's Creek, now that it's finished.
But with it probably the best show that Canada has ever come up with, ever.
I completely agree. I mean, it was just such a brilliant show. It was actually another one of my pipe dreams to make a cameo appearance on Schitt's Creek, but that did not happen. But we're working on it. Maybe if there's a movie, I will get myself in that movie.
I was going to say, like Ab Fab, we thought, it just had those three seasons, and then it just kept coming back every 2 or 3 years. Yeah. They kept coming up with a new season. So maybe Schitt's Creek will come back in about 3 years. So
have you watched Kim's Convenience?
No, what's that?
It's a really great TV sitcom. It's about a little convenience store in Toronto. That's an actual convenience store that's there, and they've made this sitcom around, and it's about a Canadian Korean family who runs it. And it's so, so cute. And one of our guest judges, Amanda Brugel on Canada's Drag Race, who's also in The Handmaid's Tale and a bunch of other things, she plays one of the characters in it. And it's a really, really funny, like, family comedy sitcom.
Where can you watch it here in the States?
I think so. I think it's on Netflix.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
And Kids in the Hall, James, is a classic.
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
How could I forget? Yes. Buddy Cole was one of the best characters of all time.
Canada is a fount of original content, of brilliant content.
It really is.
SCTV.
I was about to say that.
Uh-huh.
John Candy.
There you go.
Celine Dion.
Celine Dion. All right, let's move on to number 3. James?
Number 3.
Okay, do you mind if I get a little crazy for a minute? Do you mind if I let Crazy James out of the box?
A minute.
I have a conspiracy theory that I've been working on all week long, and this one is this is as crazy as it gets, okay? I don't know if you remember, Fenton, you remember, in 2016, I had a theory about remember there was the glut of all the creepy clowns that everyone was seeing everywhere. And you would, like, people had all these sightings in the middle of the woods. You'd see a clown with an axe and they'd be on the streets everywhere and nobody knew what it was all about. Well, I decided that it was the time travelers because I had read a book called Einstein's Dreams that talked about when time travelers from the future come back to now, you can't upset the time stream because of the butterfly effect. And so what they would do is they would dress as homeless people because they would sort of hide in the shadows and so as not to disrupt anything. And they had to be as unobtrusive as possible. But I said that they were trying to warn us about Donald Trump. And so they couldn't do anything, but they were trying to upset the world and trying to upset everybody and put everybody on edge. And that's why they were dressing up as these creepy clowns to sort of say, if you don't listen to us, if you don't pay attention and you elect Donald Trump, things are going to get crazy. Things are going to be, it's going to be like a creepy circus in the world. Well, I don't know if you've been noticing, but lately everybody's talking about the fireworks at nighttime. And in every city in the country, they are talking about how from 12 o'clock to 2:30 every night, there's these weird coordinated fireworks that are going off in every city at the exact same time, at 12:10, at 12:35, at 1:07. Like and nobody has quite been able to figure out what the fuck is going on. And I can attest that just last week, there was this boom outside of our apartment, this giant, and it sounded like an explosion. It was enough to set all the car alarms off, and it got everybody in the neighborhood out at 1:30 in the morning, and we all gathered and said, what is going, like, was there an explosion? Was there a shot? Was somebody, and we don't know what it was. Well, okay, Crazy James, my theory is it's the time travelers again, and they are coming back to warn us that if we elect Donald Trump again, that this time World War III is about to start, and they can't do anything. They can't warn us, but these fireworks and these booms are maybe like sonic booms of a boom tube of like them coming back, something like that. And Other people are saying that it could be the government, and they could be doing like a Guantanamo Bay thing where they're trying to disrupt the people. They're trying to upset everybody and keep us from sleeping is one theory. Another theory is that it's a covert government ops that is trying to get people accumulated to the sound of explosions and gunfire at night so that when they start when the shit goes down, we won't be on edge as much when it starts happening.
Well, there's a lot there to unpack. Have you noticed? But I have noticed, like, all night long fireworks going off. Have you noticed it, Brooke Lynn? Like, it's
a little
just
bit,
yeah.
And it's in New York. But if you go on Twitter and you just type #fireworks, from Charleston, from Atlanta, from Miami, New York, Detroit, every city in the country is talking about how it's all coordinated at the same time in all these different cities, which is weird. And it makes you think that that there is some weird government thing behind it.
For sure. That is very strange.
But I'm saying it's the time traveler.
Everyone's got cabin fever after being locked down and the big.
Well, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that it's just kids doing it, but it isn't. It's not just kids who are tired of sitting in their house. There's something weird that's going on, and we got to get to the bottom of it.
And what will you do to do that?
Well, you've got to catch the time travelers. They're out there. We've just got to find them and find out what the message is that they're trying to give us.
Makes sense to me.
Thank you.
I honestly,
that's Crazy James for the week.
I can see it though. I don't count anything out these days. I'm like, anything is possible. Like look at the year we've had already.
Yeah. And how much of it, we really don't know what the real story is behind any of this stuff, and it's all whatever you think it is. It's always more sinister. And I don't put anything, behind above Bill Barr and Donald Trump and what they're actually up to.
No.
It's very sobering.
Number 2.
Have you seen Floor is Lava?
No, not yet.
Oh my God. It's the weirdest show. It's like, apparently it's a kid's game, right? When you're a kid, you pretend the floor is lava. Elliot, who's 5, is going through a floor is lava phase. But and now they've made it into a reality show, a game show. And
the floor is lava?
Floor is lava. And so.
Wait, no, is it really?
No, it's just like orange colored liquid that they flood a set with. It's very weird and very it's like sort of a Holy Moly or Crystal Maze or Takeshi's Castle or Wipeout, but a sort of low budget version where they're in a studio set room, the basement, with sarcophagi, and you've got to figure out a way to get from one side of the room to the other.
Okay.
And then they fall in the hot lava, which is this orange colored water, which looks like some kind of toxic slime thing. It's not quite, something's odd about it. And then the contestants keep on sort of pretending that it really is hot lava when it obviously isn't. And it's just it's sort of, I would put this in the so bad it's good category. Really weirdly lame and strange sort of over-talking.
Who is the host?
Good, very good question.
Gotcha.
Rutledge Wood. Do you know Rutledge Wood? I don't know.
No, I don't know who that is.
Rutledge Wood, got Woods. He's the host, and the contestants are left to do a lot of the talking about, I'm climbing on the pyramid and I'm pushing the sarcophagus. It's just weird.
What channel is on? Where can we find this?
It's on channel Netflix, James.
Okay.
Yes, it's on Netflix. So that's all I'm going to say about that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch 90 Day Fiancé?
No.
Yes.
It is the best.
Season 5 was exquisite.
Oh.
Then Blake is our reality guru. He watches
especially TLC everything. I love.
Yeah, Blake loves all the little tiny house shows.
This to me, besides Drag Race, obviously, is reality TV at its absolute finest. It's just.
You're hired. You've already been hired.
I mean, really, it's just it's incredible.
I've never seen an episode
of what?
Drag Race.
Well, James, speaking of,
I'm kidding. Oh my God.
8 p.m. VH1, RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars. Watch Untucked immediately following the main show. And then, if you're still not satisfied, you can watch How's Your Head, Hun?
Right.
Michelle Visage, a quarantine talk show on lockdown, filmed all at her house with her family.
And she's doing it. It's a lot of fun. I'm loving it.
Kind of is good, isn't it? It's kind of crazy. And of course, next Thursday, July 2nd, what do we got?
What's happening? Canada's Drag Race.
Oh!
I can't believe that's so weird.
I can't believe it's really here. The moment the time has finally come.
So crazy.
All right, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll reveal the number one thing this week that made us go, wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Blake and Brooke Lynn Hytes, host of Drag Race. coming July 2nd on
Yeah.
Brave, World Presents Plus, and Stan, and BBC Three. All right. Okay, so what's number one?
Number one.
I just think that we need to stop and take a moment and reflect upon the life and legacy of Joel Schumaker, who passed away this week at age 80, I believe. Joel was a very famous costume designer turned director here in Hollywood, and probably is most famous for his Batman and Robin, in which he put nipples on the bat suit. And he always joked that when I die, my obituary will lead with the man who put nipples on the bat suit. And by God, that was mentioned in every single obituary, bless his heart. He also did like St. Elmo's Fire. He did The Client. He did Phantom of the Opera. What are some of the other movies that you know of? Ben?
You know, it's funny because it is that Batman and Robin, which at the time was really excoriated, right? Everybody panned it and said that the whole franchise had gone off the rails. And yet it sort of made him a household name. Even though he was a perfectly respected director, that's the thing that stuck. And was that the Batman and Robin that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was supposed to be in?
No. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to be in one of the Christopher Nolan ones. In fact, he had a scene at the very last episode where they called him Robin or something like that. But this is the one with Batgirl, Alicia Silverstone, and the Robin was Chris. What was his name?
Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell, who was so cute.
Wasn't Uma Thurman in it? Poison Ivy.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Brooke Lynn. You are the spitting image of Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy.
That is the nicest thing anybody's ever said.
There's a great thing that's been going around on YouTube and Twitter where it's the scene where she's in the nightclub and she comes down and she's in the gorilla outfit, and then she like blows the love dust all over everyone, and the whole nightclub turns into like a big orgy. And it is, I swear to God, it looks exactly like you. And I think you might need to do homage someday. You might need to do a performance.
I would love to. I have seen so many drag queens do that Poison Ivy number for like a talent and a pageant and stuff. Like that's pretty iconic.
It's you or Violet or Miss Fame are the three people I think who could probably pull it off the best.
He also did a couple of those John Grisham movies, A Time to Kill, and then he did Flatliners with Julia Roberts when she was dating
Kiefer
Sutherland.
Yeah, he was sort of known for giving young people, young stars that are just starting out, he would give them a platform. And he also was very famous. He was an openly gay man, in his whole life. And he famously said that he had slept between 10,000 and 20,000 people in his lifetime. And that was sort of one of the quotes that sort of ended up in a lot of his obituaries too. And he was very sort of, just that was just a matter of fact. Fenton, had you ever had any Joel Schumaker?
I did not have sex with Joel Schumaker. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't.
Apparently, had you ever met him? Do you have any stories?
I have no story. I just know that he did The Wiz. Which
right. He wrote The Wiz, didn't he? Wasn't he the screenwriter?
Let me see.
It was Sidney Lumet who directed it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought it was based on The Wizard of Oz, right?
It is, but it was 1970s. It was set in New York, like a post-apocalyptic New York with an all-black cast.
With Diana Ross.
Yeah, with Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Nipsey Russell, and Lena Horne was Glinda. And it is worth going back and looking at because that's another one that was sort of excoriated. What was the word you use?
Excoriated, yes.
Yes, at the time, but now it stands the sort of the test of time as a classic.
He wrote the screenplay for The Wiz.
He did. Okay, yeah.
But he also did Falling Down. Remember that early 90s film
Michael
Douglas, right?
Yes. So
which a guy like in a traffic jam loses his mind and goes on a sort of rampage.
Yes. Yeah, that's another all-time classic. So just very, everyone rest in power, Joel Schumaker, a passing of a legend here in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke Lynn. It has been a privilege and an honor and a pleasure having you.
Oh,
yes, I can't wait for next week. I'm so excited to see you just become the biggest star on the planet.
Oh, same. Yeah, I can't wait. And thank you again for the opportunity, Fenton. And yeah, it's going to be fun.
Woo!
And thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. Same time, same place next week. And until then, go out with a mask and do something that makes the world go
Wow.